All right. How's everybody doing tonight? I'm feeling laid back, kind of tired, but how's everybody doing? Waiting for Allison to come on by, but I don't want to feel down for too long. So I think we should start the first story with, well, it was kind of a haunting piece that some might find to be entertaining. I found to be positively frightening. This happened a few months ago with, well, shall we say, the wonderful, wonderful Department of Homeland Security. So I just want to remind everybody, in case you didn't see this before or don't remember it, remember Nina Jankowicz and her wonderful performance?
Pondering is really quite ferocious. It's when a huckster takes some lies and makes them sound precocious by saying them in Congress or a mainstream outlet. So disinformation's origins are slightly less atrocious. It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie. When Rudy Giuliani shared that intel from Ukraine, or when TikTok influencers say COVID can cause pain, they're laundering disinfo, and we really should take note and not support their lies with our wallet, voice, or vote. Oh, information laundering is really quite ferocious. It's when a huckster takes some lies and makes them sound precocious by saying them in Congress or a mainstream outlet. So yes, information's origin seems slightly less atrocious. Wondering is really quite.
Oh, that is the longest 45 seconds ever. It is 45 seconds. I kid you not. And I couldn't even make it. I'm sitting here going, oh my God, I'm 20 seconds in. I cannot handle this. Oh boy. Oh boy. Yeah. Okay. But in a crazy way though, Nina Jankowicz, I think, actually did us a favor, because this board is so evil. What they were coming up with, it was literally, a disinformation board. What are you talking about? In other places, especially if they were meeting in secret and everything, they would call that a star chamber. But by putting somebody like this in charge of it, somebody so ridiculous, nobody could get behind her. And I mean, this is not that long ago. It's only a few months ago. And the whole thing blew up in everybody else's face, or, in their face. And they were like, no, never mind. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. Now, here's the problem. Anytime anybody floats an idea, especially if it's in the government, do you honestly think that it completely goes away? Especially if it's benefiting said government? No. This is literally putting their nose into a tent. And once they've got it in there, they're going to keep at it. They're going to keep finding different ways. And they're going to do some form of anchoring, something like that, right? And I'm not sure if you're familiar with anchoring. Anchoring is a wonderful, wonderful rule or principle that businesses use. And what they're doing is they are saying, I want people to buy my product for, say, $300 or $500, right? And people say, holy cow, that's a lot of money for that product. So what they will do is they will list another product, the super Wymedime, all the features, wonderful version of this for say $600 or $700. Now, they don't think they're actually going to sell these super expensive ones. But because they have that super expensive one, and then they may even go further and then like release a really cheap one that's just garbage. It's just awful. All the features aren't there. It barely works. It's just complete trash. And they'll put that at like $100. So what happens is you see $100, $300, $600. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. You know what? That's a pretty good deal. I'm just going to take the one in the middle. It's a little bit more than I planned to buy, but it's only half the price of the best one, and it really has all the features that I need. So I can feel comfortable and I can go home with this because I'm not spending everything out of my mind. I'm comfortable with that price. Well, that's kind of what you've got to watch out for. They will throw a story out or an idea, and it's completely outlandish. And yes, Doc Brewski, thank you. It's a Halo product. Hey, Allison, I'm talking about anchoring.
Anchoring?
Yes, and not from your past, not like
okay.
But in terms of pricing, where if you want to sell a product for $300, you have one for like $100, and then you have a high end one for $600. Everybody's going, oh hell no, I can't pay $600, but I guess $300 isn't that bad. That's kind of mid-range and has all the features that I want, and you accept it. That you can also use that for policies. So you come up with something completely ridiculous, like a Mary Poppins disinformation officer and a board that looks like a star chamber, and people are going, oh hell no. And then you walk it back. Oh, never mind that. Nothing to see here. Don't worry about it. But it never truly goes away. Good example.
Didn't we talk about this last time with the Council for Social Media Responsibility?
We could have. I mean, they keep going on. I mean,
they had this new council that's like a public-private partnership, which came in the wake of the Disinformation Governance Board, and now it's like going to be even more obfuscating with because you're not going to be able to file like a public records request on some of these people, or a lot of them, because they don't work for the government anymore. Whereas like with the old version, you could have probably figured out what was going on behind the scenes a lot easier.
Because you could at least do FOIA.
Yeah.
And things like that. But yeah, kind of like the Fed, you mean?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's a great example. Yeah.
I mean, the Federal Reserve for social media. Yes. And they keep doing it over and over and over. And that's essentially what they've been doing behind everybody's back.
Yeah.
Which is frustrating as hell.
Yeah. Well, so I'm guessing, have you already talked about the DHS thing?
Well, no, I'm just about to go into it. That's the lead story.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess when I was reading that, it's hard for me to be shocked anymore by this stuff, because they are kind of doing it in plain view without needing leaks and FOIAs. And so you don't even need this stuff. I mean, it's like every single time one of these things comes out, I'm like, yeah, but they're doing it in plain view. So what are we like? Why are we so shocked? I mean, like we were talking about, this whole Council for Social Media Responsibility is, all you have to do is Google it. I mean, or don't Google it, DuckDuckGo it. It's out there in plain sight.
DuckDuckGo is in the bag too, by the way.
Oh, they are?
Completely. Gabriel, I forgot his name, stated that he was going to delist sites for misinformation.
Oh,
so you just went right down that track. Yeah.
I did see something about like they're in the Ukraine-Russia, battle, like something about that. But they were going to start promoting certain sources over others when it comes to Ukraine-Russia. So yeah, that was kind of. But I mean, so okay, well, whatever your crappy search engine of choices.
Brave, I guess, at the moment for now until except for
Look
their
it up.
crypto problem, because Brave kind of had a little crypto server problem, like, wow, my browser's sacking a lot of resources, and were they crypto mining on people's anyway, we don't know if that ever happened, but it's nothing is
But it's all out there. So it's, I'm like, okay, just another example of it. But they have this council, right? Like I was saying, that they formed after the Disinformation Governance Board, and it's backed by this Issue One organization, which is aligned with, I think it's like what, Democracy Now or something like that. It's a pro-Democrat organization, even though they say they're bipartisan. And they're all freaked out that people don't trust the government. And that's really at the bottom of all of this, is that the people in charge are like, oh God, they don't trust us anymore. We need to figure out how to regain their trust. I know. Let's silence a bunch more people and force people to believe us. It's just crazy that that's the way that they think. But that's what I really think is at the root of all this is they'll say it out loud. And did you see that in that article by The Intercept too? They have a quote from somebody who used to work at DHS and now works at Microsoft. That one of my big takeaways was the fact that I didn't realize that revolving door was so
Matt Masterson.
Yeah, I just didn't realize it was that tight knit of a community, national security and the big tech platforms.
You know what? Eisenhower talked about the military industrial complex, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would argue that tech is part of that. I mean, we're on the internet right now, right?
Well,
that was DARPANet?
Every time I have like a national security type reporter come on, they talk about the internet being created by the DoD or by
DARPA,
by intelligence.
Yes, it was DARPA. It was DARPA and Stanford together. And I mean, there's different theories of it, but the way it was sold was, oh my.
Yeah, you need to get girls18.xyz out.
Apparently, but thank you for subscribing, girls XYZ, because I have a subscriber block on here too. So, okay. Anyway, so the bots are now subscribing to channels, and they've been here for 5 minutes. That used to work really well. Okay.
That's funny.
So I wonder how many channels that bot subscribed to. Anyway, sorry. Back to DARPA. DARPANet was created, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, and they worked with Stanford. And the idea was, because it was right in the height of the Cold War, to have a communication system between different hosts everywhere that could never be taken down by a nuclear attack.
Okay.
Others, like Barnes, has pointed out that they also saw it as, and if we get people on, it would be a hell of an intelligence gathering opportunity as well.
Yeah. Well, it was making me think of something else that like how I won't get us in trouble, but the whole COVID phenomenon. And no, I mean, we're just trying to prevent there from being a global pandemic. So we're doing research so that we can find a cure. And then something happens. It wasn't our fault. It was a mistake, or wait, it didn't really happen that way. You guys are lying. Shut it down. But I mean, it feels like sort of noticing a pattern that, like, in this crazy brainwashed egomaniac psychopath reality that a lot of these people live in, that they think that they're helping people in creating these solutions and thereby create the problem.
Yeah. And by the way, that's a story that'll come up later. I don't know if you'll be on or not for the time, but yeah, I will be covering the pandemic amnesty story that came out in Atlantic.
Oh,
yes.
A lot of people have been talking about that.
I know. And I'm kind of like, I'm dreading it. I'm going to talk about it later because it's one of those. I'm like, okay, half the people are going to leave here as I talk about it, I bet. So
I'm going to look it up.
Yeah, I can send you the link in this private chat too. But
oh God, I just read the title. I want to throw up.
Yes.
Let's declare a pandemic amnesty. We need to forgive one another for what we did and said when we were in the dark about COVID.
Mm-hmm,
oh my God. She talked to her coworkers.
Anyway, like I said, I will be discussing this later and going through it. It is It is going to be a challenge to deal with. I even putting out locals and wording it carefully. People are like, "I hope you're just trolling me." I'm like, "I'm not trolling. I'm not trolling. I promise."
I'm
Yeah, it's
trying to figure out what to do with my microphone so it doesn't block the light. See?
go lower to where it's down, and then yeah. But well, can you pull it? Oh, I don't know. I don't know what you and turn the microphone actually toward you versus.
I don't know if I can. I probably can I do that? I don't think I can do that. I'm gonna wait till Lynn gets back to do it for me.
Fancy
I want to take
equipment.
down my whole desk.
Okay.
Here. That's a little bit. I'm trying to talk like non TV news reporter voice because I don't want to wake up my newborn who's in the next room and has started to become somewhat of a light sleeper. So
okay.
Can you believe this? Like, Eric, since we're doing the show, I figured, okay, we'll do pizza tonight because I don't have time to like cook a ton of food. So at just like a half an hour ago, it's really close by our small town pizza restaurant. Drive there with my daughter. My husband's exhausted, just ran the 50K at the Marine Corps Marathon in DC, up all night working on contracts for work. So he finally gets like a half an hour to take a nap. And I get to the pizza place, and I guess our daughter had taken my wallet out of my purse and left it on the floor because she digs through my purse to find candy. Because yes, I am kind of like a mouse. I do store some things in my purse. I'm like the Tic Tac mom. And so she totally like screwed us over because then I had to drive back, but then I didn't have time to go back to the pizza restaurant. So he had to wake up and take her. So, oh well.
Sorry, Lynn. Good times. Okay.
Oh, well.
So, to the Intercept story. So on this, and you're right. It is kind of it's kind of one of those where it's not completely surprising, but yet it is still really horrid. Like you have quite literally the Facebook content request system. So Facebook actually built a whole portal to where you could go in and say, hey, Facebook, we don't like the story. And no worries. Now, I don't know. Did you see the interview with Joe Rogan where Mark Zuckerberg goes on there? Like, yeah, well,
I saw that part of it. I didn't watch the whole
thing.
episode, but yeah, I did.
Well, I mean, if you watch the whole episode, you'd probably be like me, spending it the whole time saying, is he an android or is he real? Is he an android or is he real? Is he Data's son? Could Data reproduce? But anyway,
I bet he was nervous as hell.
Yeah. I mean, well, remember when he was in front of Congress and he was like flop sweating and those are the few times he actually looks human.
And but then Jack Dorsey's the opposite. He's like hasn't showered in days and he's probably
what's up, brother?
Weed.
You know what? Okay, on the Jack Dorsey thing, I kind of feel like Jack Dorsey was burning out on the job.
I think he was starting. Maybe he was going through like an Allison awakening because he was starting to realize like what he was participating in, and I don't think he wanted to do it anymore.
I don't think he had control over his company. I think he was a figurehead.
I agree.
And this is all my opinion. I'm just throwing it out there, but I think that Jack Dorsey was Musk's source. They go back to PayPal Mafia days. I think personally he was the inside man. And was probably like, I don't have any control of this crazy company here. I've got this lawyer here that they've saddled me with. I mean, how many CEOs bring their lawyer with them to talk to Joe Rogan and Tim Pool? Right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And she's doing all the talking and all the.
How did they agree to that? Like, did he like, okay, I'm willing to do the interview, but I'm bringing my attorney?
Like, you probably say whatever he wants. I mean, if you're in a certain position, it's like, I'm bringing my attorney or I'm not coming. What are you going to do? Mm-hmm. And Rogan would want that interview bad enough that, yeah, sure, I'm bringing Tim Pool. So it was kind of like, well, we both
Yeah.
brought our brains, so to speak.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I mean,
Joe Rogan and back to the pot comment. They're like Jack and Joe are just like, let's just smoke a bowl, guys. Let Tim and the lawyer go after.
yeah. And it kind of was that, because it was like, back and forth. Tim would try to pull Dorsey in, and then she would answer everything. And then he would say, well, it's such and such. She'll say, well, I need more context. So then you give more context. And she goes, well, it's a different policy. And then it would just circle and circle and circle. Anyway, that is just a perfect example. And I always forget her name and mess it up. It's like Vadia something.
Unger Sargon. Batya Unger Sargon.
Yeah, what you said. Yes.
Yeah.
She apparently was meeting with DHS on the regular. No, it's Viaja.
Okay. Sorry, I thought you were
Vadia.
talking about the reporter at the New York Post. Okay, the lawyer. You're saying?
Yes, the lawyer at Twitter is. She was meeting with DHS. Like, I can't remember if it was weekly. I mean, I'm literally catching up on the story, but meeting with them every week. So you have Facebook, they build a portal. You have Twitter, and she's doing a meeting with them. By the way, her name, did you see the meme going around about the Elon Musk's saying, what was it, that women can't have penises, and she's like, don't you say it.
Who said that?
It's a meme. And it was Elon Musk saying, women can't have that. And then she's like, don't you say that. And then he said, Twitter doesn't have a Viaja. Anyway, sorry, that was pretty funny. But
we'll see what happens with Twitter. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? Let's jump to it, because I do wonder on that. Did you see earlier? See if I can find that. Did you get
the link I sent you about the people that that the media interviewed that were fake employees of Twitter carrying boxes out?
Yeah, that happened last week, I believe. But
I did,
yes.
But it's still funny.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's a perfect way to do things.
It was on his first day or something. They were all standing outside.
Well, what I love about that is that they went right for it.
Yeah. Well, did you go click on the link? Click on the CNBC link, hyperlink that New York Post has down there. Do you see it? Oh, yeah, right there. Yeah, click on that. And then on that article, okay, read the editor's note in the paragraph right underneath.
After CNBC published details of an interview with people who claimed to be fired employees at Twitter, several reports emerged suggesting it was a hoax. CNBC could not confirm the identities of the individuals. No, you just have to go to Twitter where they bragged about it.
Yeah, and that was one of the funny things that I took away from that was, number one, it was like trolls on Twitter who fact check the corporate news, which was hilarious because they're often the ones, obviously, that the corporate news wants to get off of social media because they're extremists or disinformation agents or whatever. The little guy is causing all the problems, but they're actually fact checking the corporate news. And then it's such a great example. I think people should understand that this kind of thing is not uncommon for news organizations to do very little research into backgrounds of the people that they're interviewing. When it comes to they're just kind of standing out on the side of the road and interviewing people. Like we used to do this man on the street thing all the time. Hey, we want to localize this story. So like they did tons of it with COVID. Trump gets COVID. Let's go out and just ask people, what do they think about COVID and Trump getting COVID? And then they make it sound like everybody thinks this. They just stand outside of Walmart for people to come outside, and then they make it act like, sound like, oh, look, this guy said it. And so this is what everybody thinks. But, they just put these people on. And my takeaway was like, this is the kind of vetting that goes into the news that is brought to you, especially if it's something it's aligned with their preconceived ideas. Yeah. So like those fake employees were talking about, oh, I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills. and I can't believe he did this. And that's exactly what they wanted. They wanted a bunch of whiny employees saying that Elon Musk sucks and that they couldn't afford their Tesla anymore because he fired them. And so they're like, well, that's perfect. They're saying exactly what we want. Why do we need to look into their backgrounds? But if they said the opposite, if they were challenging the narrative, they either would have not made it on the news at all, or we're like, oh, wait, we got to find out who is this person and what's their background.
Fact check them.
Yeah, exactly.
We need to fact check them. And
Right.
that's a perfect example of like how the Washington Post, have you noticed how concerned they are about a billionaire taking over a social media platform with a laissez-faire attitude that, all these billionaires this is something important, not literally just a play toy of billionaires. Meanwhile, who owns the Washington Post?
What's his face? Bezos.
Jeff Bezos. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, but it is blindingly, I don't know if it's hypocritical. I don't even know what it is. It's just so obnoxiously ignoring everything in front of their face. It's like, yes, I agree to some extent. What do you think, actually, while we're talking about it? Do you trust Elon Musk?
I don't trust anybody.
Okay, fair enough. I don't either. And it's a situation like with Elon. Twitter is such a flaming pile of garbage before he took over that I'm kind of like, well, how's it working out for everybody so far?
Mm-hmm.
The bar is so low. Why not? Why not? And at least
Owen Benjamin back on. That's what I want to know.
Nobody's back on, and that's a story I'm going to be bringing up here in a minute. But before I do, let's talk about this one. What are your thoughts? Because I'm going back to anchoring, where I opened the show. Remember, the idea was getting floated out there that he was going to charge $20 a month for the blue check mark.
Yeah,
for verification. Twitter Blue is currently $5 a month.
Make more money.
Right. But then Stephen King, everybody threw a fit, and then he replied to Stephen King, well, what about $8 a month? $50 says, Allison, he was always planning on $8 a month.
Yeah.
And he leaked $20 a month.
Right.
But I have mixed feelings about this, and this is going around everywhere. Though I love the way he said Twitter's current lords and peasants system for who has or doesn't have a blue check mark is bullshit. Power to the people, blue for $8 a month. Now,
why does he think that it's power to the people charging somebody $8 a month? That's like unaffordable for some people. That's dumb. Just get rid of the blue check. I don't know. Maybe that's a dumb idea to get rid of the blue check mark, because I know some people want to be verified because there's bot accounts and whatnot. But, I lost my blue check mark just for changing my name when I left King 5. They made me I guess they didn't make me, but they pressured me to be Allison Morrow K5 when I was at King 5 in Seattle.
Right.
And so then when I left, I became Allison Morrow TV. And which is what I was before I changed my name to Allison Morrow King 5. I never should have changed my name. Anyway, whatever. So I changed it back and I lost my blue check mark. And I just don't have the energy to go through the process of trying to get it back, but that was the only difference. I just added TV instead of K5.
Well, I get it. The way the verification system has been run, I think, is part of the problem. Barnes. Would you agree that Barnes is a pretty popular dude?
Yes.
With a huge Twitter following, right?
Yeah.
Not verified.
Right. Yeah, that's dumb.
And there's others. Quartering, I think, has close to 1 million people not verified. And we go on and on and on down the list. So it's like this lords and peasants system is what I think he's talking about. Like, you have a preferred elite class, specifically journalists.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're at King 5, right? There you go. You were at King 5, so you got it because of the station.
Yeah.
And people are annoyed with that. They're saying, well, this is kind of BS, because a reporter who has 3,000 followers does not have the swing of a Robert Barnes, who has so many more. But yeah, Barnes can't be verified, but that reporter can be. And a lot of these accounts out there are a little bit smug. Like, that's their whole identity is, I've got my blue check mark.
Well, Peter Schiff Peter Schiff,
Mhm.
financial guy.
Libertarian.
Yep. He back when this whole thing was, I don't know, a few months ago, we weren't sure it was going to go through. He thought Elon was eventually gonna back off the deal because he said it was such a financially terrible decision for Elon Musk.
Mm.
And he was like, I just don't see him going through with it because I don't know how this guy is gonna stay solvent financially. I mean, I just, he's gonna back out. This is a terrible financial decision. So I'm wondering if, yeah, all along he had ideas for how to make money off Twitter
Sure.
like this. And that was the only reason he was willing to get into it. Cause I hearing Peter talk about it, it made sense that like, unless there was some plan to milk something out of Twitter, like just leaving it the way it was not going to be a good financial decision for him.
Yeah. I think so. I kind of think that he is not in it for the money completely anyway. Look, Jeff Bezos, why did he want the Washington Post? He has
Control.
a mouthpiece, right? I mean,
Yeah.
controlling one of the major newspapers is huge. Well, the only thing that could be considered bigger than like Washington Post, New York Times, and all that is Twitter, because
Yeah.
all the journalists are on Twitter. So Elon Musk doesn't really make the money from Twitter, but how important is it for him to control the messages because of SpaceX and all the government contracts? Because that's another bunch that's all on
That
Twitter.
could be. Yeah.
So I kind of think that he has that. He also has, and people don't want to talk about it, but he now has, because it's a private company, access to all the DMs from everybody.
Dang.
Not that he would ever, I'm sure, consider the possibilities of how a DM could be used maliciously. I won't even use specific terms out there that people may have coming into their minds, but it's a powerful thing, isn't it?
I didn't think about that.
I also heard earlier that his ex-girlfriend he just threw off. Amber Heard.
He used to
Such
date
a
Amber
small-
Heard.
Oh, yeah.
Oh no.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
So he's like a major beta male then.
In some ways, yes. He was the guy who actually, remember, she donated X amount of money. It was his money. He donated the money. Amber Heard hasn't donated any money to anybody. She pledges. She doesn't actually pay. So,
well, that doesn't bode well for his judgment.
I mean, people have.
I feel like any guy in their right mind would run very far in the opposite direction.
Yes, and Johnny Depp had a drug issue.
Well, and I mean, Johnny Depp had a mama issue. If you watch the testimony, Johnny Depp had a major mama issue, and he just ended up with his mom. It sounded pretty terrible, and maybe I don't know. I know Elon's mom's like very popular. She's out there as her own influencer type. I don't know anything about her, but I'm sorry. Like, I mean, not to try to prejudge. Just from what we saw in the testimony of what their relationship was, it would be shocking for me to think that she just became that way with her relationship with Johnny Depp, and she wasn't like that before or after. You know what I mean? Like, it was just that one time that she was doing that stuff. Not to just like only blame her. Obviously, they both had issues, but I don't know. I just find it hard to believe that Elon would have dated her when she was in some kind of sane period, and they had a healthy relationship, and then it just devolved with Johnny Depp.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I think they're both. They both had a lot of problems, and
hasn't Elon doesn't he have like 10 kids with different women?
He does. But I was also going to say, okay, the thing with Amber Heard is I have heard, and I don't know if it's true, that people like that can be incredibly exciting when they turn it on in a coital relationship and things like that. And let's say you're Johnny Depp, who could have just about any woman in the world, many options. sometimes they go for things that are on the edge, if you will. And I could see him, jumping into a big problem on that. But okay, people are saying that he's Heard's baby's daddy. I did hear something, but I don't remember that she had taken his sperm with her and he was suing to get it back or something. I don't remember all of it. It gets really, really weird.
I think you just said he was taking her sperm.
Oh, did I? I don't know. Maybe it's a Freudian slip. I have no idea. But no, she was taking his and he was suing her. I don't even know. But yeah, who knows? But back to Twitter. A lot of people are tweeting out, including me, by the way. Remember our friend David got suspended or locked out of his account. And to his credit, he didn't delete the tweet. And I was tweeting at Elon Musk and asking everybody else to do the same thing, etc. And everybody's saying, dude, man, he just took over. He's not going to do anything. Why are you tweeting at him? Now, Allison, how many times have we been through the Team YouTube dance?
Oh, me? I've at least 10 for me. At this
right.
point.
I'm usually in on it, right?
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong. We know that he may or may not do it, but if it makes enough noise, somebody may actually see it, or somebody will do it. And while he doesn't have a policy in place, he can always send a text to somebody and say, fix this.
Maybe you should tell people that David is Viva.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. David Freiheit is Viva Frei. So, anyway, he is back on. So happy to say that. However, Elon just put this out today. And, I think it was just past midnight. Anyway, this is a part that I think a lot of people really need to pay attention to. Twitter will not allow anyone who is deplatformed for violating Twitter rules back on platform until we have a clear process for doing so, which will take at least a few more weeks. Well, that's not a complete surprise because you already know that GM has dropped their advertising to Twitter. And this circles right around to Viva Frei and his situation.
Pressure groups. That's an interesting way to describe it.
Well, it's a perfect way to describe it because they include Media Matters for America, Free Press, Public Citizen, and Accountable Tech, as well as activist groups like NAACP, National Center for Transgender Equality, and the National Hispanic Media Coalition. And who did it speak to? The top 20 Twitter advertisers. And Disney is already 3/4 of the way down the woke path.
Yeah.
HBO's got a lot of that going on, and it goes on and on and on. I think the reality is that Elon is very worried because remember, the second he took over, he released that 3-page letter to advertisers. So while he's floating the Twitter Blue price hike, he's hoping to make up the money there, I think, but he's still got to worry about the advertisers.
Right.
And he's trying to tamp things down as much as possible, I think, to prevent them from jumping ship.
Yeah, or he's trying to figure out a way to make money if they do jump ship. I don't know. Either way, I'm not with the people who think that everything's going to be great all of a sudden. I just, it may not be as bad as some of Elon's detractors think it might be, but I also don't think it's going to be as good as the hero worshipers think it's going to be. I think there's still going to be issues with it. I think there's going to be terms of service. It's not going to be a free for all. I just wouldn't expect Twitter to become something that's going to like save us all. I would not put my hope in Twitter. Eric, I'm hearing screams coming, not really screams, but like dinner time kind of screams. So I'm probably gonna have to run soon. Is there anything else you really quickly want to discuss before I go? Yeah, just okay. You know what? Real quickly, I'll just put you on the spot and then you can leave.
let's find out your opinion on a pandemic amnesty.
Oh yeah.
By Emily Oster.
I haven't read the article, so I don't know what she's arguing for, but I'll just say this much. I got fired from my day job for my podcast, and the reason that I got fired was because the government agency that I was shooting wildfire videos for demanded that I stop publicly associating with people who had questions about policy, specifically vaccine mandates in that case, but had different views, dissenting views about what we've been through the last couple of years. They didn't want me to give them a voice, and they didn't want one of their employees to be associating publicly with somebody who had a different opinion. And one of the main reasons I refused to comply with them, because they told me I could keep my job if I stopped doing that. The reason I couldn't comply was in large part because I saw how terribly families, friends, communities were affected by the policies and the communication about the policies, not just mild industry of television news or corporate news, but like the government and who was allowed to be on these tech platforms and talk about things. And it wasn't even just like for, a macro level, the policies that I was concerned about, because they were being pushed by information that was not whole, because everybody was being censored at the time. But I was actually more concerned about the Thanksgiving dinner table, or just families. Like I was just at my neighbor's house today, and she was telling me how her brothers don't talk anymore because one got vaccinated and the other one didn't. I mean, that's insane. It is insane to me that that's what happened to families. I mean, that is so terrible. And so, like, I don't know what she's arguing, but I would say, first off, it should never have happened. That this we should never have needed an amnesty period. There should never have been a need for people to be like, okay, let's put down our differences. And, I'm sorry I said this to you. Like, we should never have even gotten to that point. And the reason that people did is because they were sold a false bill of goods from the media and from the government. And they weren't allowed to hear these voices, and they weren't given any nuance about the conversation. And, I realized through all this how many people are they just want to be like accepted by the cool kids in high school, and how few people are out there thinking for themselves and willing to go a different direction. It was kind of depressing in that regard. So like, do I think people should forgive each other? Yeah. I mean, I do think people should forgive each other. I don't think harboring resentment and anger is a good, if you're the person who's right. I don't think that it serves you well. But at the same time, like it's, I was, my job was a significant source of income for our family. We had our health insurance through it, and I was willing to give it up for this reason, so that, we wouldn't have families who are divided over this issue nonsensically. I mean, it should never have happened. So, I guess I want to puke a little bit reading that title, because I don't think that author is looking at her industry as, I mean, I haven't read it, but maybe I'm wrong. Did she say in there, like, we're sorry that we at The Atlantic wrote a ton of terrible crap over the last few years that has instigated these problems? Like, we're sorry. Are they, I mean, because I'd read it if the title said, let's have a media forgiveness, or sorry, not media forgiveness. Let's have a media apology tour where all of us in the media apologize for what we've done. And let's encourage people to reconcile. Like that I would read. But just like telling people they should forgive each other after all the harm that you've caused without realizing that like you're one of the main reasons they're doing it, that to me is just disgusting, if that's what it says.
Let me share a tweet that she actually sent out in 2021. Shaming people who haven't gotten vaccinated is not likely to work at this point or ever. What will? Individual family pressure, maybe vaccine requirements for things you want to do, domestics, air/train travel, work, sports events. Yes, you can have these without shame. So, ironically, though, that is the author. Somebody pointed that out, and then they brought up another one of hers.
Yeah, I mean, this is this is why I find it all to be just it's shallow words. And I want to say one thing, like a couple people saying like you can't forgive without an apology. That's not true. You don't need an apology to forgive somebody. Forgiveness is for the person who forgives. It clears your heart and your soul of anger and resentment, and you are free. Then you can move on. You don't have to wait for somebody to apologize. That may never come, and you'll be connected to the person that you hate for the rest of your life because you haven't forgiven them and just let them go. So the way I look at it, I a lot of people know I'm a Christian. I went to seminary, not that matters, but I tell people that just because I've thought about this issue quite a bit. And I think when you forgive somebody, what you're saying is, I'm not going to judge. I'm going to put God as your judge. I'm not going to judge you. I'm going to let you go. I'm not going to hold on to this resentment anymore. I'm going to let God deal with you because I'm not God. So I just to say that because I think, there are a lot of people who rightfully have been, I don't want to say what would be the right word. You are rightfully skeptical of re-engaging with people. I understand that after the abuse that people have gone through, and I do think like the losing the jobs and the pressure from families and not be able to go see, your sister.
Peter McCullough.
Yeah, I mean, I've interviewed all those people. You should hear what they tell me after the camera's off. I've heard terrible stories of the social and otherwise consequences of people's lives because I focus on censorship. I interview people every day almost who have gone through hell over the last few years. But ultimately, like, you'll be connected to exactly what you don't like forever if you don't let go. And so we have to do better. Just the way I look at it. It doesn't mean that it actually, in my opinion, will make you a better thinker. It'll give you a clearer mind, and it'll make you stronger and able to resist in the long run. Because I just think anger clouds our minds and our hearts, and it doesn't help us move forward. So I'm not to get like preachy or anything. I think about that quite a bit because I interview a lot of people who've been really hurt. And hey, listen, I'm talking to you as somebody who had lost a lot over the last year because of my podcast, so but I'm not gonna, if I harbor resentment towards my old boss or my old agency, and I don't just say, you know what, I'm gonna let God deal with you, like you're up, that's up to God to deal with, and I'm gonna let go, then they're gonna win in the end because I it will end up hurting me in the long run, I think, to hold on to that. So that's why I tell people to let it go, because it's not letting it go like you never, like you're just like everything's fine, like like you just get beat the shit out of all the time. Like, that's not at all what forgiveness is. It's actually, like I said, it's letting go so that you can see people clearly and you're not making bad decisions for yourself or your relationships, your career, or whatever, out of an emotional state. You're able to be more logical and clear thinking. And so I don't know, like, I go back into that lady. I think it sounds like her article is dumb, though I have to go back and read it. And I'm not saying like you should just go be friends with somebody like that for, I mean, but don't stew on them, because then they like my husband always says, don't let them live rent free in your head. That's your choice. If you let them live rent free in your head, then look, I'm getting all red now because I'm hot and getting preachy about it all. See,
See,
I gotta go.
Note, right?
Well, I just see people like, it's almost like I want people to let go because I want them. I want the folks who have been harmed by this to prevail. I want them to prevail, and I see so much hate and anger that I'm like, that's not winning. That's not winning. And I want you to win, because at the end of the day, like the opposition is not going to stop. They're going to continue, and they would love for people to stay angry and resentful and do stupid things out of their anger and resentment, and to prove them right. So don't prove them right, prevail and win, and do that by letting go, and not, and thinking clearly and resisting from a place of confidence, not a place of anger. That's just the way I look at it. So that's my 2 cents before I go eat some pizza that finally just got here.
All right. Well, thank you for that good note. See, you ended strong. And do you have a
depending on who's commenting. All right. Thanks, Eric. Bye,
you.
guys. See ya.
See Okay. And now my spin on this, because I've been thinking about it for a while. I put it out on Locals, and I do believe very much in forgiveness, and not necessarily for the people who did it, but kind of like Allison said, for yourself. But at the same token, and I've been trying to think about analogies or other considerations, and I think about, for example, alcoholics, drug addicts, where they go out in the wilderness, and a lot of times they cause a lot of damage to everyone around them, and it can be completely destructive in the lives of their friends and their families and everyone they love. And they don't just say, okay, I'm done, I quit, we're good now, right? I quit. They actually have to go around and they have to make amends, and they have to be of service to others. The same as, if somebody commits a crime, we're putting them in prison both to, keep society safe from them, but it is also a punishment, and it is a chance for them to consider everything they've done and to serve a penance, to do something. And I guess that's kind of where I am. Is I'm thinking that there should be a consideration out there that, yes, ultimately, yes, we will, maybe, we will forgive, but I don't think you should just say, oh, drop everything, oh, good, go, we're going to write an article. I think that's nothing more than a step. I've seen many people in the chat here who was saying, hey, first they have to ask forgiveness. They have to apologize. And I think about the, making amends. And I agree on that. And yeah, Garrett, you're a perfect example. I agree. The actions that were taking place by people to punish those who went against what they believed, and there was no actual evidence, and that is very frustrating to me, because people were saying that oh, nobody said anything, nobody knew, and I know very well that they knew. I know very well that people were pointing out that there were problems going on, and I know these because, well, I got to see them suspended from YouTube. I got to see my peers who would say things. I got to learn about, oh, you can't use specific words because those words are going to get you in trouble. So believe me, I'm very familiar with that situation. And somebody pointed out that, yes, ironically, a lot of addicts were not able to attend AA meetings, ironically. So that was an interesting choice of mine, I guess. They couldn't go to AA meetings because the AA meetings were in churches, and they weren't allowing people to go to churches for group services. And there are people who potentially died. Yes. And Rogue thought you were right too. There are people who died without loved ones near. Others lost confidence, yes, and others went on. And yes. And Johnny Arcade, you are correct. Where it was legal, the dispensaries were open, and you could always buy booze just about anywhere that sold it. Absolutely. And there were other issues too, that we could point out the hypocrisy of how Home Depot was considered necessary and important, but the mom and pop hardware store was considered dangerous. Or they could stay open, but a small market couldn't be open because they were dangerous. Coincidentally, the bigger locations all stayed open. They were all, I forgot the term for it. I'm extremely tired, but they were considered necessary, important. They had to have it, but not anything small. So I get it. It is really hard, and there is a quality of somebody did a short video. I don't know if it's TikTok or somewhere else. I thought it was a kind of an interesting analogy. The person was saying, yeah, it was kind of like all of us were put on an island, and then you determined that you were going to eat us. And after you killed a few of our friends and you ate some of them, you're saying, and then we all got rescued off the island. You said, well, never mind all that. We're good now, right? We were rescued. There were no problems. Everything is good to go. Well, obviously it wasn't good to go. And I don't think there's an immediate path back, but I think there has to be a path back. And I guess that's where I'm going with it, is that the same way as if somebody commits a crime and they go to prison, you say, this is your sentence. And you are going to have to serve this sentence before you can get paroled. You can earn time one way or another, but you're still going to serve a sentence. You're going to do your time. But at least it's laid out. And it's saying, okay, here are the parameters. So I understand and agree with Allison about not being angry. And I think it's possible. I think it is possible to freeze people out of your life and not be angry. I know that sounds kind of weird, but a lot of times, victims' families or whatever, when somebody gets sent away, they just feel awful. They just feel bad about everything. And it's like, well, I'm done. I'm done with this. And I think that in a way, some degree of honesty, like, yes, eventually I will forgive you, sure, but not today, not tomorrow. You have to give me time. You have to work toward it. You have to prove yourself. And I don't think that's an unfair ask for those who jumped on bandwagons and went after people, because that was ugly. Should never go after anybody. I mean, like people who wanted to take a drug, then that's fine. That was their choice. People who didn't, that was also their choice. And unlike other circumstances there was no science to back it up, and anyone who really paid attention, because you got to see a lot of cognitive dissonance going on, where you saw people getting infected left and right. They all had taken the Fauci juice. They were all getting infected. But it would just keep spinning a new tale, like, well, thank God I did. Thank God I took the juice. Thank God. They still got infected. And here's the craziest thing of all. And I think it's going to be lasting for a while. I'm going to close out with this Substack that came into my email just before I did the show from Alex Berenson, who is kind of half the time good, half the time kind of nutty. Probably has some deep state ties, but the funeral business is booming, and it's not because of COVID. Funeral business is going bonkers. Look at this. It is going nuts. In a typical year of like through 2019, before, etc., you get maybe 1% or 2% one way or the other, right? So one year you might get a 1% uptick of deaths, the next year it'd be down, and then you get 2% and it's down. Pretty stable though. Pretty stable. You had people dying at a pretty regular basis, right? Well, the numbers now, and we're talking about the third quarter of this year, 15% more calls than they did in the third quarter of 2019. Think about that. People are not dying from COVID right now. Now, I'm not saying that as we get into winter, just like the flu, COVID will probably be back, probably see more, but people are dying now like crazy. So what's going on? What's going on? Is it COVID or is it the response? I don't want to get into it because I'm dancing with YouTube. But I'm just putting it out there and I'm closing with it because I think everyone should kind of consider, if it's not the pandemic that's killing people, well, then what is? What is killing people? So everyone, I appreciate it so much. And tonight's sponsor is you. If you like this and you've hung out all this time, please throw a like. I'm terrible. I don't ask for likes and all that. And consider subscribing. Only if you like it. I know that's a crazy way to say it, but seriously, only if you like it. Because if you subscribe and you don't really like it, then it's really not necessarily helping. But if you do like this, please subscribe. It helps me a lot. Please throw a like either way. That helps a lot. And I definitely, well, I hope to see you next time. And thanks so much for coming.